The school called me into a meeting to tell me that my son was a problem. 2 years later, that same son saved a child while the adults at the school ran away in panic. My name is Rodrigo Tavares. I'm 42 years old. I work as an industrial maintenance technician, and as far as I can remember, I've never been one to talk much about feelings. Not because I lack them, but because I learned early on that men don't take up space with that. I grew up like that, and it was my son who taught me I was wrong. Lucas was born in March 2016, and the first 2 years of his life were exactly as I expected. Noisy, tiring, and absolutely normal. It was in the 3rd year that things started to change. Rather, that's when I began to realize that they had always been different. He didn't respond when we called his name. He didn't point to the things he wanted when something around him changed the position of a chair. Bath time. The route we took to the bakery, he would collapse in a way I couldn't name. I called it a tantrum. It took me too long to understand that it wasn't. The diagnosis came when Lucas was 3 years and 8 months old. Autism spectrum disorder, level 2 support. In practice, this meant he needed considerable help communicating, regulating his emotions, and navigating a world that seemed designed to assault his senses. Loud noises paralyzed him. The textures of clothing were too physical for him. The fluorescent light in the market made his eyes squint and his shoulders tense as if he were carrying weight. He spoke, but with effort and delay, choosing his words carefully, like someone choosing stones to cross a river. I didn't know any of that at first, and what I didn't know, I filled with fear. When Lucas turned 6, I enrolled him in the neighborhood municipal school. It was the same school I had attended 30 years earlier, and that gave me a strange sense of continuity, as if life were being stitched together coherently. The principal at the time was a woman named Sonia. She greeted me with a rehearsed smile and a lengthy form. She asked about the report, about Lucas's needs, about what I expected from the school. I said that I expected the basics, that he would be treated with respect, that he would have access to the content like any other child, and that, if there were difficulties, they would call me to talk before making any decisions. She agreed to everything, wrote everything down, and gave me a phone number for emergencies. The following week, Lucas went to school for the first time. He went with the red backpack that he himself chose. It took him 40 minutes to decide on the color, scrolling through the options with that specific concentration of his, as if the decision had real weight. And I stood there on the sidewalk watching him disappear through the gate. For a moment, I believed it was going to work. This moment lasted a little over 15 days. The first call came on a Thursday afternoon. Lucas's teacher, Donna Marcia, in a low voice, and with the tone of someone doing me a favor by informing me, said that he had disrupted the class. The exact word she used was disrupted. I asked what had happened. She explained that during math class, a student had dropped a pencil case on the floor, and the noise had caused Lucas to stand up abruptly, cover his ears, and start making loud noises. The other children had been startled. The class had stopped. I asked what the school had done to help him at that moment. There was a pause. She said that the assistant had taken him outside until he calmed down. I asked if there was a sensory support room, some protocol for this type of situation. Another, longer pause. She said no, that the school didn't have the structure for that, but that they were doing the best they could. I went to the school the next day. I spoke with Sonia. She explained to me with the patience of someone who has been explaining the same thing for years, that Lucas would be assisted by a teaching assistant as soon as the Department of Education made the resources available, and that this could take a few months, while my son covered his ears alone in a courtyard. I needed to be patient. I did, for longer than I should have. In October of that first year, I was summoned to a meeting with the principal, the teacher, and a professional from the Department of Education whom I had never seen before. I sat on the other side of a long, cold table. They had papers. I only had my hands on my pants. The professional from the secretariat was the first to speak. She said that the school had come to the conclusion that the regular class was the most suitable environment for him, that he was disrupting the pace of the other students, that the teacher couldn't possibly manage him and the others at the same time, that, therefore, they were suggesting that he be transferred to a special class in another unit. I recorded that meeting. They weren't obligated to know, but I needed to have what they said saved somewhere other than just my memory. Professor Marche added that Lucas was intelligent, but that this intelligence couldn't find a way out, and that this was a problem. I didn't scream. I wanted to scream, but I stared at that table for a few seconds, and then said I'd think about it. I got up, grabbed my jacket, and left. In the parking lot, I sat in the car and remained there for 40 minutes, unable to start the engine. What none of those people at the meeting saw was what happened after 4 o'clock in the afternoon. When Lucas arrived home from school, it wasn't a child who walked through the door, throwing his backpack on the floor and asking for lunch. It was a child who arrived, exhausted. He would sit in the corner of the sofa with his knees bent against his chest and rock slightly back and forth. Sometimes he would cry, without being able to explain why. Other times he would quietly repeat sequences of words or sounds. And there were nights when he couldn't sleep. I would lie down next to him. There were wonderful days when he would laugh, when he would show me ants, clouds, and patterns. Those moments were real, but the cost was being paid every night. He was excluded, silently, systematically. Then one day, a boy fell down the stairs. Lucas stayed. He helped. He cleaned the wound. He comforted. When the adults arrived, Lucas was still there. The boy's mother thanked me. The coordinator said, "How many things does Lucas notice that we don't see?" Nothing magically changed, but small things did. Lucas was included more. And I changed. I learned to trust my son. He stayed. He was himself.